Welcome to District Command Central, your go-to source for the latest news and updates on the Washington Commanders. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a play. Dan Quinn walked into the press room on Monday afternoon with that calm but intense demeanor that has become his trademark. The Washington Commanders head coach knows exactly what the questions are going to be because the fan base, the media, and the locker room have all been asking the same thing. What's holding this team back? After 6 games, the Commanders sit at 3-3. Not terrible, not great. A .500 record doesn't define a team, but it tells a story, one of inconsistency, missed chances, and a group still trying to find its true identity under a coach who preaches discipline, aggression, and balance. Quinn didn't mince words when he addressed the media. His voice was measured, but you could sense the frustration behind every syllable. Just the fact that we haven't done complimentary football as well as we need to in the 6 games, Quinn said. Simple words, but for those who know football, they carry a world of meaning. Complimentary football, that's the buzz phrase, the DNA of any truly great team. It's the connection between offense, defense, and special teams. It's the rhythm that great teams find when one unit feeds off the energy and performance of the other. It's not just about play calling or individual brilliance. It's about harmony. And for Quinn's Commanders, that harmony has been missing in action. When you watch Washington play this season, you see flashes of potential that make you believe this team could be 4-2, maybe even 5-1. In the Week 6 loss to the Chicago Bears, they had their chances, moments where momentum was theirs for the taking. But time and again, the execution faltered. Missed opportunities at the end of the first half, drives that stalled when they should have thrived, and defensive stands that started strong but didn't finish. These are the moments that separate a good team from a great one, and Quinn knows it. He spoke about those very sequences, emphasizing how the Commanders must lean into one another more consistently. There's been times that we have, and it feels like winning, and it feels like the things we do feed off one another. And then there's times when we don't, Quinn explained. You can hear the coach's mind working through the details, the way a defensive stop should inspire the offense to capitalize, how a long drive should give the defense a breather and reset the tone of the game. But in Washington, those connections have been intermittent. Last season, the Commanders were a model of that balance. They were gritty, smart, and resilient. They didn't have the flashiest offense or the most dominant defense, but they had an identity. That team played with cohesion, a sense of shared purpose that carried them to 11 wins and a playoff berth. It wasn't always pretty, but it worked. This year, however, it feels like the rhythm has been disrupted. Maybe it's new personnel learning the system, maybe it's the injuries that inevitably pile up, or maybe it's just the weight of expectations. But whatever the cause, Quinn is determined to fix it before the season starts to slip away. He's been around this league long enough to know that in the NFL, momentum is fragile. You can go from contender to crisis in the blink of an eye. What stands out about Quinn's message is how he refuses to point fingers. There's no blame placed on the quarterback, no public calling out of the defense or special teams. Instead, he talks about we, not they. That's leadership. It's accountability. He understands that for this team to turn the corner, everyone has to buy in, from the starting lineup to the practice squad. It's about playing for each other, not just alongside each other. And if you've ever been inside an NFL locker room, you know that culture matters as much as talent. When a team believes in each other, when the offense knows the defense will have their back and vice versa, it creates an unshakable confidence. That's what the Commanders had last year, and that's what Quinn is fighting to rebuild. The statistics tell part of the story. Through 6 games, the Commanders' defense has had moments of dominance, sacks, turnovers, key third-down stops, but too often they've been left stranded after the offense sputtered on key drives. On the flip side, the offense has moved the ball well in stretches, showing flashes of creativity and rhythm, only to be undone by penalties or red zone inefficiency. It's like a band where the drummer and guitarist keep playing slightly out of sync, talented musicians, but the timing just isn't clicking. And when that happens in the NFL, even a single missed beat can cost you a game. What's particularly frustrating for Washington fans is that the potential is obvious. This roster isn't short on playmakers. The defense has speed and power, the kind of unit that can dictate games when they're on their game. The offense, led by a young but fearless quarterback, has shown it can move the chains and control tempo. But football is a sport of symphony, not solos. A great defensive stand that leads to a quick offensive 3-and-out kills momentum. A brilliant offensive drive followed by a special teams blunder flips the field and the energy. Quinn knows this. He's lived it. He saw how complementary football powered his teams in the past, most notably during his time in Dallas as defensive coordinator, where every phase of the game worked in tandem. That's what he's trying to instill in Washington. As the Commanders prepare to face the Dallas Cowboys in Week 7, the challenge grows steeper. Quinn knows that game carries emotional weight, not just because he used to coach in Dallas, but because it's a measuring stick. The Cowboys are one of those teams that thrive on balance when they're clicking. Their defense creates turnovers, their offense capitalizes, and suddenly a close game becomes a blowout. That's the kind of synergy Quinn wants his Commanders to emulate. He even hinted at it when he said, "The more we can lean into one another, the better it is for us." That's plain and simple, and when we're at our best. If there's one thing about Dan Quinn, it's that he's a teacher at heart. His background in coaching defense is rooted in fundamentals, tackling, pursuit angles, situational awareness. But what sets him apart is his belief in the emotional side of the game. He talks about energy, trust, and unity like they're as important as X's and O's. And maybe they are. Because when you watch the Commanders this season, you can tell they're close. This isn't a broken team. It's a team that's out of rhythm, but fully capable of finding its beat again. Every loss has been competitive, every mistake fixable. The gap between 3-3 and 5-1 isn't talent, it's timing. In the NFL, the margin for error is razor thin. A single drive can decide your fate. A single missed block or coverage lapse can flip an entire game script. The Commanders have learned that the hard way. But Quinn's message isn't one of despair. It's one of recalibration. He's not tearing down, he's tuning up. And that's exactly the kind of mindset you want from your head coach. You don't rebuild from panic, you rebuild from awareness. You identify what's off, you correct it, and you move forward. The Commanders know where their issues lie. That's the first step. Now, it's about execution. The players have echoed Quinn's sentiment. Throughout the week, several veterans mentioned how the team meetings have focused less on blaming individual errors and more on connecting the dots between units. It's a holistic approach. Offensive linemen watching defensive film to understand game flow. Defensive players studying offensive drives to see where momentum shifts. It's all part of Quinn's complementary football philosophy, understanding that every play affects the next, no matter which side of the ball you're on. That's not just strategy, that's culture building. And if there's something Washington fans can hang their hats on, it's that Dan Quinn doesn't shy away from challenges. He's been to the mountaintop and he's felt the sting of heartbreak, from his Super Bowl run in Atlanta to his defensive renaissance in Dallas. He knows what it takes to win, and he knows how quickly it can slip away when the balance breaks. So when he stands at the podium and says, "We've got to play complementary football," it's not just a slogan. It's a battle plan. As the Commanders head to Texas for their clash with the Cowboys, the spotlight grows brighter. The team's record says average, but their potential screams contender. If they can finally sync all three phases, offense, defense, and special teams, they might just rediscover that playoff caliber form from last season. The difference between disappointment and destiny could come down to execution, timing, and trust. And if Quinn's words are any indication, he's betting big on trust. The kind that can turn a .500 team into a force to be reckoned with. The kind that turns 6 games of frustration into a season of redemption. So here's the bottom line. The Washington Commanders aren't broken. They're unfinished. The pieces are there, the vision is clear, and the belief is growing. Dan Quinn isn't waving red flags or delivering fiery ultimatums. He's steadying the ship. Complementary football isn't just about plays on a field, it's about a mindset. It's about 53 men pulling in the same direction, feeding off each other's success, refusing to let one bad series define an entire game. That's what Quinn is preaching. And if his players start living that message, this 3-3 start could be remembered not as a sign of mediocrity, but as the spark that lit a mid-season turnaround. The Commanders' season isn't defined yet, but make no mistake, Dan Quinn knows exactly what it will take to rewrite the story. If you're enjoying the coverage, make sure to smash that like button and drop a comment with your thoughts on the Commanders' latest moves. We want to hear from you. There's a storm brewing in the nation's capital, and it's centered squarely around the Washington Commanders. You might have seen the headlines, or maybe caught a snippet on social media, but the whispers have become a roar over the past 24 hours. Dan Quinn, the head coach of the Commanders, is reportedly frustrated, and by frustrated, I mean visibly, audibly, and perhaps even explosively upset. Sources close to the team have leaked that Quinn recently called a private meeting with his coaching staff, and insiders say the room was tense, the air thick with tension and unspoken warnings. The headline? Some returns could end up destroying the unity of the Commanders squad, he allegedly said, a statement that has since echoed through locker rooms, Twitter feeds, and sports podcasts nationwide. Now, this isn't just your run-of-the-mill gripe about draft picks or injuries. It's about something much deeper, something that hits at the heart of team chemistry, cohesion, and the culture Quinn is desperately trying to instill in Washington. Imagine a coach, one with a decorated history, a Super Bowl ring, and a reputation for building resilient defenses, watching the threads of his carefully woven locker room unravel in real time. That's where the Commanders reportedly find themselves tonight. The term returns here isn't just a casual reference to a player coming back from injury. Insiders suggest it could be multiple players returning, some from injuries, some from suspensions, and possibly even a few high-profile acquisitions from trades or free agency. And while on paper, having talent return should be a cause for celebration, Quinn's comments indicate a deeper fear that the reintroduction of certain personalities, certain play styles, and certain ego-driven individuals could upset the fragile balance that currently exists. It's the classic sports paradox. Sometimes more is less. Too many stars, too many strong personalities, and what once was a unified front can suddenly fracture into factions, whispers in the locker room, and ultimately, a team that performs below its potential. But let's be honest, this isn't entirely surprising if you've been watching the Commanders over the last couple of seasons. There's been an undercurrent of tension between veteran players and new acquisitions, between defensive stalwarts and offensive innovators. And now it seems that Quinn has finally reached a tipping point. The timing couldn't be more precarious. The season is still in its early stages, but fans, pundits, and even rival coaches are watching Washington like hawks. One slip-up, one public display of disunity, and the narrative could spiral. Quinn, ever the strategist, seems determined to nip potential issues in the bud, even if it means speaking bluntly, even if it means airing uncomfortable truths in semi-public forums. According to those with knowledge of the internal meetings, he didn't sugarcoat anything. He allegedly walked into the room, laid out the scenarios he's concerned about, and pointed out specific cases where the return of certain players might cause friction, not in terms of ability, not in terms of talent, but in terms of fit, culture, and leadership dynamics. And when you start talking about the culture of a team, you're talking about something that's invisible but immensely powerful. You're talking about the small interactions, the way players treat one another on the practice field, the way rookie quarterbacks defer, or don't, to veterans, the way leaders set the tone in meetings. Quinn, someone who has built his reputation on discipline and structure, reportedly fears that some returns could undermine all of that hard work. There's also a rumor floating around that certain veterans have pushed back in subtle ways, questioning play calls, offering veiled criticisms of coaching strategy, or even engaging in behaviors that could be considered disruptive. Now, it's important to stress that these are unconfirmed, whispered reports, but when the head coach himself publicly, or semi-publicly, signals concern, it gives fuel to the fire. The sports world thrives on these narratives. Analysts, commentators, and fans alike are now dissecting every practice, every sideline interaction, every cryptic tweet, looking for signs that the Commanders' unity is fraying. And here's where it gets even juicier. Some sources hint that the players in question aren't just any players. They're key contributors, impact players whose presence can make or break games. Returning from injury or suspension, these individuals are expected to be difference makers, game changers. Yet their integration into the team could be a double-edged sword. You can almost picture the tension, a locker room divided between those who've been holding the fort, those who've adapted to Quinn's system, and the returning stars who may or may not fit seamlessly into the current dynamic. Quinn's alleged statement has caused ripples far beyond Washington. NFL insiders are now speculating on the potential consequences. Could a fractured locker room derail a playoff push? Could a poorly managed return turn a promising season into a cautionary tale? History in the league tells us yes. Teams with fractured internal dynamics rarely survive the grind of the NFL season unscathed. And then there's the psychological angle. Players feed off each other. Energy is contagious, and Quinn apparently recognizes that more than most. If the vibe in the locker room sours, it doesn't matter how talented the roster is. Talent alone doesn't win games. Cohesion, trust, and alignment do. Another layer to this unfolding drama is the public perception. Quinn's reputation as a calm, methodical coach is at stake. The media will inevitably pick apart every word, every gesture, and every decision related to these returns. Social media will amplify every whisper, turn rumors into breaking news, and fans will weigh in, often with little understanding of the complexities involved. The pressure is immense, and Quinn reportedly understands this fully. From what has been leaked, he seems prepared to take decisive action if necessary, potentially benching players, limiting snap counts, or even adjusting the leadership hierarchy within the team to maintain control. It's the kind of behind-the-scenes maneuvering that rarely becomes public knowledge. But in today's hyper-connected sports world, secrets are fleeting. Adding even more intrigue, insiders hint that the returns in question may involve players whose contracts, personalities, or past incidents make them flashpoints for drama. Whether it's a star wide receiver returning from suspension, a defensive linchpin coming back from injury, or a mid-season acquisition who demands the spotlight, Quinn seems acutely aware of the ripple effects. His alleged warning about team unity, therefore, isn't just motivational speech. It's a calculated, strategic alert aimed at his staff, players, and maybe even the league. And let's not forget the fans. Washington fans are famously passionate, invested, and vocal. Any hint of locker room turmoil can spark debates that ripple through stadiums, sports bars, and online forums. Quinn's concern, then, is not only for internal cohesion but for external optics, for maintaining a sense of order and credibility in a franchise that's been under intense scrutiny. As the rumor mill churns, the narrative seems clear. The Commanders are at a crossroads. The returns could inject new energy and elevate the team to new heights, or they could ignite tensions that spiral out of control. Dan Quinn, ever the strategist, appears to be preparing for both possibilities, signaling to his players that unity, respect, and culture matter as much as talent and strategy. And so, the next few weeks promise to be a test of leadership, patience, and adaptability. Will the returning players integrate seamlessly, boosting the squad toward victories and playoff contention? Or will friction, resentment, and misalignment create a divide that even a seasoned coach like Quinn can't bridge? The whispers are growing louder, the eyes are watching, and one thing is certain. In Washington, the tension is real, the stakes are sky-high, and the saga of the Commanders' locker room is far from over. Whether this turns into a cautionary tale or a triumphant comeback story will depend on the delicate balance between talent, personality, and leadership. And right now, Dan Quinn is at the center of it all, trying to steer the ship through potentially turbulent waters. As the rumor spreads and the anticipation builds, one thing becomes painfully clear. In the NFL, unity isn't just a nice-to-have. It's the difference between a team that flounders and a team that conquers. And in the nation's capital, every eye, every analyst, every fan is watching to see which path the Commanders will take. Thanks for tuning into District Command Central. Make sure to subscribe and follow us for all the Commanders news you need. Until next time, keep the faith and hail to the Commanders.